after I left San Francisco, I was there for 2 years. I moved back to Minneapolis and I started DJing, and I did a podcast that I was telling you about called The Black Helpline. And I am now a producer at a creative agency. None of these things probably would have happened had I not taken that leap of faith and just gone, okay, I got to get out of this world that I've created for myself because it's not working.
Welcome to Reinvention Rebels, stories of brave and unapologetic women 50 to 90 years young who have boldly reinvented life on their own terms to find new purpose and possibilities. I'm your host, Wendy Battles. I need to kick your fears to the curb, do it scared, and step into who you are meant to be in midlife and beyond. These amazing women, these reinvention rebels, can help light your reinvention path. Come join us and let's get inspired together. Hey, Rebels. Welcome to another episode of the Reinvention Rebels podcast. I am your host, Wendy. I am so glad you are joining me today. This is the place to come for inspiration, possibilities, new perspective about what it means to reinvent ourselves. You are a reinvention rebel. Maybe you don't even know it yet, but reinvention rebels are brave. They are bold. They are unapologetic in deciding now is the time to step up in our lives in midlife and anywhere beyond, to live the life we want to live, to reinvent in the way we want to on our terms. And we all have our own story. There's no right or wrong way to reinvent. There's only your way. And as you open up and listen to yourself and begin to see new possibilities, anything is possible. And you know, I love sharing stories of women who are doing just that to inspire all of us, myself included, about what that looks like, what it could look like, how I could step up in my own life and try on new things. Sometimes fail, start over, but find my groove, find my path when the time is right. And today I'm so very excited about my guest, Tricky Miki. I'm going to introduce her to you in a moment, and our conversation, which is fun, light, but deep at the same time, very profound, full of possibilities that you're going to learn about from Miki's journey. But before we get to that, I have to ask you, if you listened to the last episode of the Reinvention Rebels podcast about navigating midlife stuckness. I don't know about you, but I have been stuck many times in midlife. Like, just stopped in my tracks, not even sure where to go next. It took me a while to recalibrate. And one of the things that has been really successful is using gratitude to help me navigate the ups and downs and get unstuck. And that's what this episode is about. 3 strategies to use gratitude to help us get unstuck. I'm going to link to it in the show notes, but it is a fabulous listen. And as we're all trying to figure it out, plus, of course, it is the season of gratitude, although it never is out of season. But I know around Thanksgiving, Hanukkah, Christmas, New Year's, we all lean even more into gratitude. So I want to encourage you to take a listen to that. Without further ado, let's get to this amazing conversation with Tricky Miki. Tricky Miki is a filmmaker, DJ, and producer who has worked in multiple realms of the entertainment industry. She has successfully taken on the role of creator, writer, researcher, assistant producer, and director. Miki has also been an entrepreneur and business operations manager for over 20 years and has overseen the building of businesses from concept through creation. She's a civil rights and social justice advocate and is passionate about having an affirming impact on the world. Currently, she works as a producer for a creative marketing and branding agency. And I will tell you that Tricky Miki has an extraordinarily interesting reinvention journey. Miki, welcome to the Reinvention Rebels guest chair.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited for this conversation.
I am too. And before we actually even get into your story, which has many different parts to it and is really interesting, I do want to tell everyone how we actually connected, which was very serendipitous because my best friend from high school, also named Miki, I saw her over the summer when I was in Minneapolis visiting. She took me to an event where you were the DJ. We connected, and it was just one of those, I guess, meant to be things that here you are with this great reinvention story.
It was a fun day. It was a fun day.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. So I know that you have reinvented yourself in diverse ways, in interesting ways throughout midlife. You're always up for an adventure. You're not afraid to start over. Can you tell me a little bit about your reinvention journey? What sparked your interest, and what are some of the things that you've done as you've reinvented in midlife?
You know, I guess it would depend on where I went back to start this conversation, like how far back into my own personal history I go back. I think this latest iteration of who I am began in 2010. I had just opened a bar in Brooklyn, New York, and I found myself feeling really trapped by it. I wasn't making enough money to actually sustain life, so I was required to have yet another bartending job so that my bar would work. So it could actually work as a bar, and
Which
I didn't
is
have to
kind of ironic.
pretend. Yeah, it's messed up. So one day I was watching a documentary on the making of Deep Throat, the porn. And they were talking to the daughter of Linda Lovelace, one of the most notorious porn stars ever. And I thought to myself, well, shit, what was her life like? I can't imagine what her life was like. The daughter, can't imagine what the daughter's life must have been like to be the daughter, to be the offspring of the most notorious porn star, basically, of all time. Like, I can't imagine what she would have gone through. I can't imagine what she was, what types of harassment in school, her peers, all this kind of stuff. So I started thinking about it. And to make a long story short, I did a documentary on children born to porn stars called Born into Porn, ironically enough. And although it was really a super interesting journey, talking to people, getting to know some people, hearing stories, some of which I could use, some of which they asked me not to, and out of respect, I didn't. Basically, it came down to a lot of people were not ready to talk about their story, and a lot of people were not ready to hear that story. But it taught me a lot, not only about just the process of making a documentary film, but of course, it taught me a lot about social stigmas and how we are just so preconceived to think about people in certain ways, and jobs in certain ways, and sex work in certain ways, and the people who are engaged in sex work. So that was the jumping off point for Tricky Miki 2.0. So I made that film. I sold my portion of the bar in 2014, and I moved to San Francisco, where I volunteered with the homeless and indigent people in the Tenderloin. So I was out there volunteering with harm reduction and doing, those kinds of outreach work. And then I was also volunteering at a sex worker health clinic and interviewing people on their experiences. And so I did a bunch of kind of one-on-one interviews with sex workers and basically whatever they wanted to talk about. So after I left San Francisco, I was there for 2 years. I moved back to Minneapolis and I started DJing, and I did a podcast that I was telling you about called The Black Helpline. And I am now a producer at a creative agency. None of these things probably would have happened had I not taken that leap of faith and just gone, okay, I got to get out of this world that I've created for myself because it's not working. And I'm still in the process of working my way through things that interest me, but I feel really comfortable and confident in the decisions that I'm making now. And it's, I think a lot of it just has to do with that whole YOLO, like you really do only live once.
Yeah.
And also the fear of missing out. But at least now I don't feel stifled like I did when I was a child, where I said, oh, I want to do that, and I want to do this. And then it would cripple me, essentially, because there were so many things that I wanted to do. I didn't know where to start. And now I've narrowed it down to the few things that really interest me. and I'm doing them, and I'm doing them to the best of my ability, and I'm happy.
Are you thinking, I'll have some of what she's having? Reinvention rebels are amazing, as you can hear from our discussion. They've put themselves first, decided their dreams matter, and are taking action. They have unleashed their inner rebel and are living on purpose in midlife. Are you ready to start putting yourself first and embark on your midlife dreams, focused on what you want, not others' ideas of what you should do? Come check out my new audio course, Midlife Reinvention from the Inside Out, 8 Essentials to Greenlight Your Life. I share my roadmap to get you started on your reinvention journey with the key components you need to navigate detours and get on the road to smooth reinvention sailing. Sis, it is time to give yourself the green light to shine in midlife and crush those dreams of yours with joy and purpose. Join today and let's reinvent and get inspired together. Details are in the show notes. I love that you are going for it. And it's what my friend Randy calls a multi-potentialite. You have all these different things that interest you, multiple different interests, and this desire to pursue them and to explore. And part of what I hear in you saying that you're going for it is this curiosity about things. What could be possible if I did that? And curiosity and a willingness to try it, but it's okay if it doesn't work out. Like,
right.
It feels very much like, let me explore the possibilities, see what resonates with me, and kind of go from there.
I've given myself permission to fail because in failure, you can really learn a lot. And so going back to what I was trying to say about the film that I made, it's certainly no glowing, great, piece of cinematic anything, but I learned a lot. And with failures, you learn a lot. And I'm not saying that I'm out there trying to fail. I don't, it's not like everybody wants to fail, but I'm not crippled by the idea of failing. I am not stifled or hindered by the fear because I have nothing to lose and everything to gain. And the more that I learn, the better I'll come back. And each time I come back with new knowledge, something else is strengthened. So I'm really happy that I've reached this point where failure is an option, but so is success. It's all fine. It's all part of the everyday kind of movement through life. Every day I try to do something a little interesting that I can look back on. I try to fill every day, even if it's just something, silly and fun and a little kooky. I try to fill every one of my days.
I like that mindset that you have about how you're approaching this, because I think that some women who are midlife, who are listening to this podcast, who want to reinvent, or maybe they've tried and it hasn't worked out the way they wanted to, that I think that sometimes we can give up on ourselves. And part of what I hear you saying is that you bet on yourself. You bet on yourself. You believed in yourself. And that self-belief, I feel like, is sometimes missing for midlife women who have been the caretaker, the do what everyone else wants, not this idea of what you're saying, like, I'm betting on myself and I'm going to do what I want to do to really get the most out of my life. Was there ever a time when you didn't have that feeling, when you weren't betting on yourself, or is there something that shifted that helped you believe in your abilities?
Did something shift my belief in my abilities? No, well, I don't know if that's a yes or no answer. What I do know is that what shifted was my desire to have a different life, because the life I was leading wasn't working for me. And so I figured that it didn't matter what I was doing as long as I was doing something different, doing something else, just doing something, do anything.
Yeah.
My friend Rye says, just do anything, do it, just do whatever, right? And it's to just do whatever you want. If it doesn't work for you, stop doing it. And I know it sounds really simple, and I'm putting it in very simplistic terms, but at the end of the day, if something is draining you, if something is dragging you down, if something is depressing you, stop it. So for instance, I owned this bar, and the bar was never going to go anywhere where two people were going to be able to draw an income from it. and make it something that was going to work for them and all that other good stuff. And that I found really depressing. And I found the fact that I had to have yet another job just to survive in New York City while I owned a business really depressing. And I said, none of this is working for me. And I can't see this in the long term. I don't see any long-term positive outcome for this. So I need to just cut my losses and get out. So I did. I cut my losses. And by my losses, I mean a significant financial loss because I was that unhappy. And the minute I handed my former business partner my set of keys, it was like the air smelled a little sweeter and the sun shone brighter. And it was like this tremendous weight was lifted off of my chest, right? And having that as the jump off point to, again, going Miki 2.0, like that right there was the definitive day. That was the day, that was the time. And I never looked back. And I started just pursuing things that interested me. And here I am, I DJ on the side. I'm working for a really fantastic company. I'm writing my own projects. I'm on this fantastic podcast. Like I'm just doing stuff, right?
Yeah.
And every day I'm doing something because I want to be able to look back when it's all said and done. And I am getting ready to jump off this mortal coil. And I look back and it's not about the collection of stuff that I have. It's about the collection of stories that I have and the lives that I've touched and the things that I've done. That to me is life. And that is how I'm looking at this last kind of trimester of my life is how much more life can I pack in before this is all said and done?
I love that. How much more life can I pack in before this is all said and done? That spirit, that approach to life, that attitude to me is so powerful to decide affirmatively. I'm going to take action. I'm going to do something I want to do because it really struck me when you said that you handed over the keys and that weight lifted off of you. And I think that sometimes when we feel stuck and we make a bold move, we sometimes do it. We're scared, but we do it anyway. On the other side of the doubt and the fear, there is what I heard you say, so much possibility. It's like the universe responds when you say, this is what I want to do, even if I don't exactly know how yet. Things open up. And it just seems to me, and I've seen this in my own life when I've taken that leap of faith. And so I look back and think that probably was crazy, but I did it anyway, because at the time it just felt right. It felt like what I should do. And I just trusted and it really worked out. And then things really did open up. That path became much more clear. I got the clarity I needed. And I hope that people listening will be thinking about, what opportunities do you have to take that chance, to bet on yourself, to do something different? And I liked what you said, Miki, about just that one action. Take one step, do one thing that's different, try one thing that's new. And I think that sometimes we get stuck on often, well, I'm going to reinvent. It's got to be this big deal. And it's not that at all. I mean, reinvention can be anything you want it to be. And it doesn't have to be like moving to another country.
Right.
Something big and dramatic.
Although it can be that too. But,
yes.
It's not like my reinvention has been over the course now of 14 years. So it's not like I just did it yesterday. Right. Yeah. So all these things they all came because of my own conviction. They came because of my conviction in myself, in the idea that I was behind, and in the people that I wanted to know and meet and talk to and hear their story. And one step at a time, I got there. Not to beat a dead horse, but it really goes back to the old adage of you have to crawl before you can walk. And that is true. So for the past 14 years, I've been crawling, learning how to walk, and I'm finally standing upright. And here I am, and I'm ready to move forward with my head held high and continue to succeed and fail, but move forward regardless. Yeah,
I like that mindset of failures, successes, but still forward progress. And you mentioned sort of these baby steps that you were crawling, now you're walking, you're upright, and you're moving forward. I am curious because one of the things you said was that you became a part-time DJ. And I'm really interested because, often careers like DJing or something like that, we associate that with someone who's younger. And you became a DJ in midlife. And I'm curious, did you have experience as a DJ? Like, how did you start doing that? How did that unfold?
I said I wanted to DJ.
Oh, and there you go.
I said I want to learn how to DJ.
In the tricky Mickey way, you're like, okay, I think I'll DJ now.
Yes. That's exactly.
I love it.
That's exactly what it was. I was like, I can't listen to this shit anymore. I can't listen to this shit music. I cannot listen to this anymore. I said, I want to dance to the music that I like, And so I learned how to DJ because I like to dance and I like to be out and I like good music. I don't like this namby-pamby, half-assed garbage, right? Now, it's arguable that I'm sure somebody would disagree.
Yeah, right? But you're like, okay, again, I'm going to just sort of chart my own path.
Well, and the beauty is there are others that agree with my taste in music. And you happened to be one of them.
Right? So. I have witnessed it. Girl, that was fun. I was like, maybe I need to move back to Minneapolis. To be in the Tricky Miki orbit. I mean, that was really a lot of fun. But I really love this idea that you were like, okay, I want to do that. I don't know how to do that, but I'm going to figure out how to do that. Because I believe, Miki, that everything is figure outable.
I do too.
If you want to do it, and again, you might not have a roadmap, you might not know how, but you can ask somebody, you can Google it, you can read a book. I mean, there are endless ways to get information, to figure out how to do something, have someone mentor you, you name it. So if you want to do it, if you have that dream, if there's that inkling of something like, wow, I want to do X, we can do it. We just have to figure out the how. And it doesn't have to be like, I didn't know how to podcast before I was a podcaster, but I was like, I want to have a podcast. And again, when you put it out there, like the path opened up just like that. Someone whose podcast I listened to was like having a course on how to start a podcast that I heard listening to a podcast. I was like, oh, well, that was meant to be. Here we go.
Right. And so that's exactly what I did with DJing is I talked to a couple of friends who are DJs and they helped me. They taught me what they knew and I took it from there.
I love it. So that it also speaks to we have to be willing to ask.
Yes. I mean, nobody is an island to themselves, right? No one is. And I think one of my greatest strengths is my ability to talk to just about anybody. And that's because I was a bartender for 20 years, right? And so it's given me that ability to talk to anyone about virtually anything. Which
is an amazing skill to have, I might add.
It actually really is, and it served me quite well. And so I'm not afraid to ask, and I'm not afraid to say, hey, I don't know. Can you show me? Because most of the time, people are very happy to impart their knowledge and their wisdom. They're happy to do it.
They really are. I mean, it's amazing that people, they are so willing to share if you're willing to ask. And yes. I always think, too, like, well, the worst thing they can do is say no, and then I can go to somebody else.
Right.
I'm
exactly.
Like, wow. To me, no just means not right now.
Or not you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or, you're maybe mean, but I know other people that are nice. It will help me with what I need. Thank you very much. Right. But I think it is that persistence, though, that is so key to reinvention. We have to be willing to not just give up if it doesn't go the way we want it to right away. I mean, if we really want to do something, we have to be in it to win it for the long haul, which is the mindset I've adopted around podcasting. Unless you're really famous, most podcasts aren't like going to get 1 million downloads.
No, but it's an interesting conversation. And I'm sure every time you open up this portal, you're learning something also.
Exactly. So it's that same idea, right? I'm always learning more. I'm always open to new ideas. I'm interested in what other people are doing. How have they found success? What's a trick I can learn that could be simple I could apply? So this idea of, this always learning really does make a difference. So, Miki, we're talking about midlife reinvention. We're talking about making these shifts. We're talking about taking leaps and also leaning into our creativity. I see this parallel between the two of us about being creative souls that are willing to try new things. And one of my secret weapons that helps me lean into my creativity and really focus is something called Magic Mind. It's a mental performance shot made from all natural ingredients like lion's mane mushrooms, matcha, and ashwagandha that helps me crush procrastination, because we're all about taking action, boosts my mood, and helps me put an end to my sometimes midlife menopausal brain fog. I don't know if you can relate to that. I'm 3 months in, and I'm loving the difference that I felt by drinking Magic Mind. So for people like you and me, it's kind of a creator's dream, a simple way to infuse our mind and body with a good-for-you solution. You know what else? You drink it with your morning coffee. So for me, it's quickly become a healthy habit that I now have on repeat. So if you're a creative, a gamer, artist, musician, producer, podcaster, or anybody else, I encourage you to give it a try for yourself. The great news is that you can give it a spin with 20% off at checkout with my special code Rebels20. You can check out all of the details in the show notes. All right, so Miki, we are talking all things creative and pursuing our dreams. And I want to ask you, as you kind of think about all these different things you've done, you've been on this beautiful trajectory that's very interesting of trusting yourself and going for it. If you had to boil down to like one secret weapon, your secret weapon to your success as you've gone through this process. You said you crawled and now you're walking. So it's been a process. It's been this unfolding. But what would you say would be the single most important ingredient that kind of weaves all of this together?
It's not one ingredient. Not for me. It's a mixture of me being able to talk to people and ask questions and know what it is that I want when I'm asking these questions. And so by that, I mean, take, for instance, the DJ stuff. I wanted to learn how to DJ. I knew some people who could help me learn how to DJ or teach me how to DJ. And as a result, I asked them to help me. And so going back to what I said about crawling before you walk, they helped me crawl. They are also the ones who help me stand tall. They're the ones who have helped to erect me. Without them, I wouldn't be able to say that I can do this. And I will never forget that they helped me. And I, in turn around and try to help wherever I can. So I pay it back, right? Or I pay it forward, or however it is you want to describe it. I don't take without giving. And I don't ask people to do things for me without taking it seriously and then making sure that they understand how much they have given me. And I in turn try to give either them or somebody else something else.
So I like that sort of circle of life, so to speak, when it comes to learning and growing and being able to help someone else along the way. And I feel the same way. I've done the same thing with podcasting. I mean, now I know. And people ask me a lot, like, well, can you tell me about it? Like, should I start a podcast? Which, of course, is a loaded question. I'm like, well, how much time do you have for something that will cost you a lot? How much dedication
do you have?
Right, exactly. How much money do you have? I mean,
no, that too.
Right, that too. I just said, I want to start a podcast. And I feel inspired because I'm really interested in empowering midlife women.
Right.
I wasn't thinking about the other things like, what is the trajectory for this? And how about pod fade and all the things that go with it? Maybe that's better that I didn't because this enabled me to just get started.
Well, okay. So then here's a question for you. What is your biggest success story? Do you have somebody whom you have interviewed or somebody in your life where their reinvention story came about as a result of discussions with you?
Oh, that's a good question. Someone's reinvention story that came. I'm sure I do. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head, but I know people have said that it's inspired them to get into action and to be motivated to see new possibilities. I mean, most of the people I interview, of course, have already reinvented themselves specifically, but I do have listeners, people that will sometimes write to me and say, oh my gosh, that episode was so great. It's inspired me to go back and pursue X. And that really was the whole point of it, right? For any one of us to see ourselves and other people's stories. And not that I'm going to hear your story and become a DJ, me personally, but that it will inspire me to figure out my own reinvention, right? That people listening to your story, Miki, are going to hear and say, oh, well, look at what she did. And look at that amazing mindset she had about just going for it. Like maybe I could figure out how to make that work for me in my own unique way. It's not going to be Miki's story, but it's going to be my story. It's going to be my reinvention story.
At the end of the day, ask yourself, what do you have to lose? What do I have to lose?
Yes.
Not a single thing. Not one single thing.
Yeah.
You have nothing to lose by pursuing something that interests you. Nothing. I can't stress it enough. And if you think somehow you're going to end up looking foolish, no one's paying that much attention to you. So nobody cares that much.
No
one cares that much.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. One of the things I find fascinating about you, Miki, is that you have prioritized your dreams. And you have said, I'm going to do these things as you've talked about in our interview. I want to do X, I want to do Y, I want to Z, and I'm just going to do it. I'm going to find a way. And so many women I know, and perhaps women that you know too, have spent a lot of time prioritizing everybody else's dreams. Their boss, their family, their kids, people have such a long list. I'm really curious as to what advice you have for someone that's listening who has been stuck in, well, I got to meet everybody else's needs before my own. Because I know that it's one thing for us to say, well, I want to do X, and we just kind of pursue it. But I know for someone who's stuck in that mode of everyone else's needs are more important than mine, it's not as simple as flipping a switch and being like, oh, I mean, it might be for some people, but for most people, it's an evolution to kind of get there. Do you have any advice for that woman who's been like really focused on everybody else and is trying to shift that focus to herself?
I was a caretaker for both my mother and my father. I do not have children, so I cannot speak from that angle, but I can speak from the angle of having a mother with bipolar and borderline personality disorder, along with a severe drug addiction. And I can speak to taking care of a father who basically had to become a shut-in because of COVID and then passed away in the house. So when it came to those two very important people in my life, I put aside my desires. I put aside my dreams because for me, there was no other option. I was determined to do my best for them. I was determined to help them as much as I possibly could because I also knew that the time would come that I would be on my own, able to pursue the things that I wanted to do. Now, you ask me, do I have any advice? I do not have any advice. People will have to do what they have to do for themselves. I would implore you, dear listener, to consider self-care because you cannot do for everyone else unless you do something for yourself. Now, you have to decide for yourself what that is. No one else can give you advice. Well, maybe somebody else can. Maybe somebody will give you advice that you can hear. I cannot, and I will not give you advice. I will just say to you that how can you show up and show correct for other people when you are completely bombed out and depleted for yourself? That's what I'm going to ask you to ask yourself. And at the end of the day, if you can still show up day in and day out for everybody else and you have an infinite well of energy and positive thinking, then kudos to you. I am not that person. I need to shut off. I need to recharge. I need to give myself that. I had to do it when I was taking care of my parents even. But at the end of the day, I came back to myself because really, I'm the last one standing in the family except for my brother, and I'm not taking care of my brother. So that's what I would have to say. That's my advice. Take care of yourself so that if you want to and you need to, you can take care of others.
As someone who's been a caretaker, I completely hear you on that. And it really starts with us. And we have to decide that that's important enough to create the space for other things. So I'm right there with you.
Well, how does one person decide that they aren't enough, but they aren't enough for themselves to take care of, but they're enough to take care of everybody else? Oh, I can't do that. I got too many other things to do. I don't understand that mindset. I do not understand it because you give away little bits and pieces of yourself. What's left at the end of the day, the end of the week, end of the month, end of your life? What's left?
Right.
And that's not to say that it'll ever be reciprocated, right? You could give and give and give. That doesn't mean anyone's ever going to give you anything back.
Absolutely.
So there's nothing wrong with being a little selfish.
No.
I'm not talking about being a narcissist. I'm not talking about being a nut job and completely self-centered, but I'm talking about giving yourself just a little bit of leeway.
Absolutely. Setting our own boundaries. Only we know what those are. But I think that that's so key. The self-care and the boundaries is so key also to reinventing ourselves. To saying, well, I'm going to spend this many hours doing this, pursuing whatever it is I want to pursue, because that's what I want to do. And I'm going to make this a priority.
Everyone should have one thing that is all theirs that they love. It's not a lot to ask.
It's really
not. Even if
not.
it's just reading a book. Even if it's just going to the library and picking out a book that you like and going home and reading it in a quiet room. It can be that simple.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm completely with you that everyone should have at least one thing, whatever that is.
2 or 3.
But I know I was going to say, but that's even better. Because one is kind of hard. I'm thinking I can think about a lot of things,
Well, girl, I'm a Gemini. I like having a lot of things on my platter. I like a little poo-poo platter. Like a little taste of everything.
I'm not a Gemini, but I like this. Probably too much. I mean, that's probably like part of my Achilles heel is that I'm into too many different things. But that's what happens when you're a multi-potentialite and you have all these different interests, right? And you just you get energy from learning new things and trying new things and seeing where it goes. And, why not?
Why not?
Right? Why not? Why not? So as we're starting to wrap up our conversation, Miki, I do want to ask you this question about, we're going to boil it on down. If I asked you about your reinvention headline, your story, you've talked about so many different components of how you've reinvented yourself. You talked a lot about the how. You talked about this whole path that you've taken and some of the things that happened along the way, how people helped you, how you were willing to ask for help, how you had an openness to trying different things, how you weren't afraid to fail, how you understand that success and failure can coexist as we reimagine and we explore in this precious life that we have. So if you had to give your reinvention journey a theme with all the twists and turns that you talked about, like I bought this bar and then realized I needed another job to support the bar and then found that totally depressing. So then I took some other actions to undo that to live the life I want to live. So twists and turns. So what would you say that your reinvention theme might be?
The theme of my journey, that's a good question. Never straight, always forward. That's my theme.
Never straight, always forward. I love that.
None of it's ever straightforward.
Yeah.
I will never get from point A to point B without at least skirting around C and D a little bit.
Yeah.
And my journey to where I am from where I started was, of course, not straightforward. But it was an interesting journey nonetheless.
It was, and you got there.
Well, not quite, but I'm getting there.
Yeah. En route.
I'm en route, absolutely. And yeah, I'm enjoying the journey. What do they say? What's the old saying? The old saying is, it's never the destination, it's always the journey.
Yeah.
To paraphrase, but that's part and parcel of what I keep in the back of my head as I bullet point little things on the horizon that I want to achieve. So my next achievement, I want my next achievement, and I'm just putting it out there in the universe.
Yeah, tell me.
I want my next achievement to be that I am a writer-producer on my own TV show or my own movie. That's the next big goal.
I love that.
Yeah.
Maybe you can produce the Reinvention Rebels TV show.
Rock and roll.
That's been on my board for like the longest time. It popped into my head one day. I'm going to have a TV show. So
great.
This idea of dreaming big in a limitless way and trusting that things are going to unfold, even if we don't know the how, but, and it might be that, not straight route that you're talking about, right? That we're going to get there, but maybe not in the way we initially envision. And I can't wait to see what you do. I really love this conversation we've had today and the insights you shared, because I think that's what we all need to hear, is that it's not always easy, but it's worth it. And we can persist. We can get out of a situation that seemingly could be depressing, unfulfilling, not what we want. We can always find a way.
Yes, I do believe that. But maybe it's me being foolish and I'm feeling quite, what's the word I'm looking for? Privileged in being able to pursue these things. Maybe I am privileged in that way. But again, going back to what I said before, I would implore anyone who's listening to consider yourself just as important as you would somebody else. Because you are. And you can do it. I mean, hell, if I can do it, you can do it.
I think that all the time. I believe we all have so much more potential within us. We're so much stronger than we think, more resilient than we think, and able to do these things. I know people listening maybe thinking, Tricky Miki is like so freaking cool. I need to follow this woman. I can't go to Minneapolis necessarily and go to one of her DJ sets, but where can people find you? Are you on social media? Where could people connect with you, Miki?
Yep, I'm on social media. I'm on my name because I was hacked. I was hacked by a Bitcoin something or other, one of those nut jobs who loves to hijack somebody's social media. So it's kind of a long one. It's the_only_tricky_Miki on Instagram and Tricky Miki on Facebook.
Perfect. I'm going to link to that in the show notes so people can easily find you. I have to tell you though, girl, I cannot thank you enough for joining me today.
Oh,
You
it was
are
my pleasure.
awesome. You are so awesome. And it's so nice to get to know you. I mean, I'd only met you briefly when you were DJing. So it's not like I had a conversation with you. It has been such a pleasure and a joy to
Thank you.
talk to you, to find out about you, and really to hear your story, which is so encouraging. That's what I would call it. It is encouraging to me to hear what you have done and the approach you've taken. I'm like, yes, I want more of this. That's what we need to invite into our lives, are the people like this that, again, help us move forward. And I hope everyone listening is getting that same feel from our conversation today. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for
girl.
having me.
I don't know about you, but I loved, in all caps, loved my conversation with Tricky Miki. This is what reinvention looks like. This is what it looks like when we go for it. This is what happens when we're curious and when we try things, when we're open to failure and success, and knowing that failure is not defining us. Becoming a DJ in your late 50s? Why the hell not? We can do anything when we decide we can. And Tricky Miki is the epitome of what that looks and sounds like. And of course, I wish you could see her in person, spinning as she does fabulous music. But it's a reminder to all of us that we can look within. We can tune into what grooves us, what jazzes up, what we're curious about, and lean in from there. It's all about this idea of getting more curious. And if you were inspired as I was, I want to help you get started. And I want to offer up my free gift to you, 100 ways to reinvent yourself in midlife. Okay, so you might be thinking, well, I'm not going to become a DJ. I get that. But so what? There are hundreds, if not thousands of things that you can do. And you heard Miki. She tried different things. She was open. She was curious. She's got this seeking mind to constantly be looking at what could be possible. And that's what I want for you too. I've got a link in the show notes to download my free gift, 100 Ways to Reinvent in Midlife, because I want you to get started too. I want you to get curious. I want you to decide that you are worth it. It's worth investigating what could be possible so that you can live your best, most joyful, fun, outrageously amazing life that you can. And if you love this episode, do me a favor, share it with a friend or 2 or 10. Tell the people in your life about this amazing episode. Hit the share button in whatever listening app you're using and encourage them to try on for size this idea of midlife reinvention and beyond and what we can do, which is anything. By the way, I'm on a mission to introduce all of you, my amazing listeners, to other podcasts, what I call adjacent podcasts, that are hosted by women over 50 that are all about living our best life. And today, I want to tell you about a podcast hosted by my friends Chris and Jill, which I've had the pleasure of appearing on, called Fit Strong Women Over 50. I don't know about you, but my almost 60 body is totally different than my body even at 50. And this podcast shares inspiration, information, ideas with amazing guests who are all about well-aging and helping us create the strongest, most fit bodies as we age so that we can live on purpose, y'all, as we want to do. I encourage you to check it out. Details are in the show notes. You don't want to miss this fabulous podcast. So until next time, Rebels, keep shining your light. The world needs you and all that you have to offer.